Welcome to Distribution Talk with Jason Bader, the show where we dive into the stories, struggles, and solutions from business owners and thought leaders in the wholesale distribution market. Hey friends, Jason here. In this episode, I had the pleasure of catching up with Alex Witcpalek. Trust me, that's a mouthful to try to pronounce each and every time, but he is the CEO and founder of a company called Continuum.ai, and they've really hyper-focused on the returns process and distribution. And it's kind of shocking how, how do you make a business out of that? Oh my gosh, this is such a challenging problem for distributors to deal with. Not only warranty returns, but returns from customers, and how do I get back to the manufacturer? And I mean, you're talking about getting multiple people involved with this whole process. Well, his company is really focused on using AI and driving this network between all stakeholders in the supply chain to get this process to where it's painless. And so, we had a great conversation, and I ran into Alex a while back when he was involved in sales enablement, and it just kind of came full circle. But yeah, I think you'll really enjoy listening to, some of the things that are going on in technology right now and kind of how people get there. So it was fun catching up with him, and I really hope you enjoy this episode. This episode of Distribution Talk is sponsored by InSQL Distribution Software. InSQL is a fully functional distribution-based software package. I only recommend software packages that were purpose-built to serve distribution, and these folks do it very well at a price point many smaller distributors can afford. Economy doesn't mean compromise. This company is on the cutting edge of distribution-friendly applications like VMI on mobile devices, mobile signature capture, mobile CRM, warehouse management software, and e-commerce development. If you're ready to step up to a fully loaded, scalable distribution package at an affordable price, look no further than InSQL Distribution Software at www.insql.com. That's INXSQL.com. All right, Alex. Hey, welcome to Distribution Talk. Good to see you again, my man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be on Distribution Talk. I feel like, what was it? It's been 3 months since
About
we were
3
together.
months. Yeah. Hey, give me a little background. You and I have kind of run into each other over the years, at different things and different stops along your tour. But, how'd you get involved with technology? And, is this really what you wanted to do coming out of college? And, give us a nickel tour.
Yeah. Give you a bit of the back of the baseball card stats.
Yeah.
I played college football down at the University of Louisville, and I was at somewhat of a crossroad. I was doing commercial real estate down in Louisville, Kentucky, and I think there was 18 guys that I had played football with that were in the NFL at this point. And I'm like, what am I doing? I'm selling, nail salons, little 1,400 square foot places in Louisville. And there's, the guys I played with in the NFL. And so I was like, I remember I met with a buddy, and he's like, you ever thought about getting into tech? I was like, tech. He's like, yeah, you want to make a difference or make a change. You can get into tech. You can really change the world. And so I joined an early stage company at about $1 million in revenue, a company called Sales Eye, and ended up leading North American sales for them. It's an analytics and CRM company for distribution manufacturing. And I spent some time there, and I kind of thought it was just my initial stop and, way into tech. But in my time there, I started going to these industry events, right? Going to Hardy. I think you and I met at a Blue Hawk event. And
sure.
Fell in love with this industry. I really did. I always say I'm like probably a glutton for punishment, but fell in love with this industry and never looked back. So, stayed there, learned a ton about the industry, different verticals, automotive, heavy duty markets, did a whole bunch of program deals through PACCAR, Napa, Kenworth, Peterbilt semi-trucks, through multiple different verticals. HVAC was a big space for us.
Sure.
And then ended up leaving there and joined another company called Connexium and spent just under 4 years at Connexium and had a great ride there. And again, just doubled down on the industry. And when I was there, everyone's like, hey, you know what? I could solve this returns and warranties problem. I was like, look, I'm never leaving this industry. I'm always going to be on the tech side. It's like, I've always wanted to own my own tech company. It's like, why not me? We'll start it.
Yeah, I'll figure it out. Just give me a shot. Yeah. Put me in, coach. I'll figure it out.
So Continuum was born, right? It's like, well, I'm always going to serve these people, this market. Always going to be on the tech side. It's just was a matter of what.
Nice, nice. I think, some of the stops along the way, and first one, Sales Eye was more CRM, wasn't it? Is that, yeah,
CRM and analytics. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Good. I mean, that's a great space, It's getting a little crowded now, but
It's very
that's a
crowded now.
really, yeah, that's a great space. And there's some good ones, that are coming out, and, everybody wants to slap the AI label on everything. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No, it was. I mean, so I learned so much from the founder there. They actually just got acquired by Sugar CRM.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
and they were one of the early players into sales analytics for distribution companies. They
Hmm.
had a very specific focus. If you did project based, if you did capital equipment type stuff, wasn't a great fit. So it was really for the field sales rep. But
Yeah.
like you said, there's a lot of people in that space now who probably have taken what they did to another level.
Hmm.
But I
Hmm.
mean, everyone has some sort of analytics that they're making decisions
Right.
off of now. It's table stakes.
Absolutely. And, but I will say, yeah, for the territory sales rep, it's a great tool. So, no, I'm sure you learned a ton out of that, and, really kind of, well, what's your appetite for some of the other big distributor problems that you ran into?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely whet the appetite, right? And I learned so much about the operation of a distributor when I was there. I went through Hardy's Emerging Leaders Program, ended up being awarded with HVACR's 40 under 40.
Hmm.
Are you wearing? Are you? I thought you were
I am
showing me
wearing
behind
a
you.
Hardy Emerging Leaders t-shirt here.
So
I was
yeah,
just speaking at that event, in July. So
it's
that's pretty
incredible
funny.
though, right? Jason Trimbach of 2J Supply led our group, and I can't remember the exact name of the book, but I was forced to read a book. Say forced. I had the opportunity to read a
Yes.
book to read a book that, and it was really around inventory turns. How do you optimize your inventory? How do you get the most profitability around? And that's when I really started to fall in love with this industry, because I was like, oh, it's actually a really mentally engaging industry.
Hmm.
Like, and the problems are actually very complicated. They're not simple problems to solve.
Hmm.
Supply chain, pricing, inventory optimization, pricing right to your customers. All these different things. And so, if you like to wake up and basically having a Rubik's cube to solve every day inside of a business, I mean, distribution is great, and I think that's part of what got me so excited about this market.
It is on the surface, it's a very simple deal. You buy some stuff from a manufacturer, you play with it in a warehouse for a little bit, you get it out to somebody who's going to use it. Simple, but
Hmm.
it's not. I think all the externals.
Yeah, yeah. Buy cheap, sell for more.
Right.
There's so much nuance underneath it.
Oh, yeah. And then if they
You
don't
know
like
it.
it, they're going to send
I
it
got
back to you.
yeah.
But
Well,
we'll get to that in a minute here. We'll get there in a minute here.
you know this because I remember, I think the first time and we talked about this when we were at dinner. The first time that you and I got engaged, I was playing that board game. I can't remember what it was called.
Yes, 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 yes. The sales game. I can't remember the name of it either. So, but yeah,
But it just shows you, it was like you built, there was a whole game around, basically a game of Monopoly around a distribution
right,
business and the
right.
decisions you make and the impacts that it has. And so I think that was just a microcosm of just how, you could think, oh, I just buy product, get it in, sell product, move it out. But the vast nuance underneath that, that really was what it is to me, is what makes this industry so interesting.
Sure, absolutely. And I hear it all, in every conversation I have, there is a nuance, but then there is somebody applying another way to look at the problem. And I think that's kind of fun too. You could run on the same old way you operate, and you probably be okay for a while, but you're definitely going to get left in the dust. I mean, you have to constantly reinvent the way that you're handling the same thing over and over. And for example, I mean, how you deliver product. Well, before it was just, you get in a truck, you deliver it, you drop off at job site, bada bing, you're done. And
Mhm.
now it's like you got a signature capture, or maybe you're using, fleet management software to route. And there's just nuances. There's just different things, different ways. You try to make right turns all the time versus left. I mean, it's, how can I make it quicker?
Well, it's a game of inches, right?
Yeah.
I'm on a panel tomorrow. It's all around profitability in the operation for a distribution company, and it's a game of inches. It's a game of thin margins, and so you talk about right turns, but like if you want to think about it, like even leveling it up, you get to really define who you want to be as a distributor. Well, okay, do we want to compete with the Amazon type world? Are we going to be like a true
Right.
e-commerce player? Or do we want to serve the more highly let's say, configured products or more made to order type products. And then there's a middle ground. And what market do you cater to, and who do you serve, and how do you brand yourself and represent yourself to go win a market in a geography? And I think that side of things get probably underrepresented or underserved from a mental capacity in a
Mhm.
distribution organization. Because I think there's so much about winning inside of that and really understanding, like, who are you? Because so many distributors are like, oh, let's say, what makes you unique? Our customer service, our customer experience, like everyone, right?
That's
What
all they
makes you
want to
unique?
say. Yeah, 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 yeah,
It's our
yeah.
customer experience. But like the really, really good ones have a very clearly defined value proposition, which
Right.
differentiates them from the next guy.
Yep. No, absolutely. I hear this all the time when I'm teaching. Yeah, what makes you? Why should people pay you? It's like because of our customer service. I'm like, that ain't gonna cut it, bro. It's just not gonna cut it. You have got to get deeper than that. You better figure out exactly why you're different, or else you're just gonna have to fight on price, and nobody's gonna win there. It's gonna be a race to the bottom at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and if you can't articulate it, you probably haven't thought about it enough.
That's right.
Right. Like,
That's
yeah, very true.
oh yeah. If you can't get it down to 5 minutes, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
You're definitely in trouble. So, as you went through all of this, you're developing products and you're really, understanding this distribution niche. Some of the big things that popped out for you. What were the big needs, and then ultimately kind of led you to where you are today? But operational sales. What were the big things that you kind of saw that were holes in the market?
Well, I'll put it this way. I think this is any business, but a distribution business, there's two ways of looking at it. I can either sell more, and for everything I sell, I'm going to make 20, 30, if you're lucky, 40 points of margin on it. Right.
Right.
So for every dollar I sell more, I make 40 cents. Right.
Yeah.
Best case scenario. Or I can save $1 and that whole dollar drops to my bottom line. And I think when I realized that for a distributor, my whole world changed a bit. Like,
Hmm.
it's like, wait
Okay.
a second. And then you can, if you save that dollar and you drop it to your bottom line, you can go reinvest that dollar to
Hmm.
go get growth. Okay. And so that's, to me, it was some of an aha moment in
Hmm.
distribution, because I grew up selling sales enablement analytics that would help you sell more, right?
Right.
Cross sell. But then I started to pivot that same strategy into, well, how do you sell more profitably? And so, like, things like, oh, I have a truck going out on a route. Well, how do I make sure the most expensive truck I have is an empty truck, just like a hotel room? Like the most expensive room a hotel has is the empty one. Well, that truck's going out. You're paying for that gas. You're driving right past customers, and if you're not stopping and delivering, well, that's a really expensive route.
Yeah.
And that all lended itself back to this idea of like profitability and like unit economics for distributors. And that's when I pivoted to like really into the cost savings world. And you can't cut your way to growth, right? You can't
Very
you can't
true.
just be like, I'm going to be the most profitable way to growth. So there's this balance here, but it's like, if I can take my human capital and I can go deploy them in revenue generating activities and get them out of mundane tasks, and replace it with something that is lower cost than that human, I get both. I unlock both, right? So
Right.
I drop the dollars to the bottom line, which I can go reinvest. And I also redeploy that creative mind, which a machine can't do, to driving more revenue. And so that's when
Mhm.
I became like really obsessed back when I was with a company called Connexium, and we were
Yeah.
automating PDF orders. And it was around like this idea of, it's like, oh, wow, not only am I making you more profitable because I can process that same transaction for a fraction of the cost, you can now redeploy those resources. And if they're not the right resources, get them off the bus and deploy the resources to people who are going to drive revenue. And so
Right.
that's when I became really, really maniacal about process automation inside of distribution companies, because I think it is a double edged sword, which can do both at the same time, which is drop that dollar to the bottom line, but also redeploy your human capital, which then gets you on the offense to go grow, because you can't just cut your way to growth. And that's really, we spent a lot of time on the order automation side, and this
Yeah.
concept of returns and warranties kept coming up. And that's really the whole where this was born out of, is that concept of how do we take mundane processes that are so ingrained inside of these distribution organizations and think about an innovative way to taking the next step into innovation as a distributor.
So at that AI conference, we were at the Distribution Strategy Group's AI conference in Chicago. I mean, first of all, yeah, I tip my hat to those guys. I mean, I enjoyed that immensely. I mean, it was fantastic. I really thought that was a good event, well run, well organized, but I will
Good
say,
content.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And it was weird. I think I shared this with you at dinner. It was weird for me because I wasn't being paid to be there. That I didn't have a role. I was like a fish out of water for the first hour. So I'm like, the hell am I supposed to be doing? I hadn't attended a conference for a long time, and so it was kind of fun. So eventually I figured out, well, maybe I should just be listening and saying hi to people and
Maybe I
whatnot.
can enjoy myself here, huh?
Right. I didn't, foreign concept for me, but it's interesting. A lot of folks, I found more people on that sales side trying to do the order entry, optimization, the matching.
I mean, that space is blown up, is it not?
I just had a conversation with a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, before we did this. And I'm like, man, this place is getting crowded. I mean, that
Uh,
space is getting really, really crowded. And everybody thinks they've got a different way of attacking it, but not really. Not really.
yeah, yeah.
Again, I have ultimate respect for people who are trying to solve that problem and work on that problem because it's something I can't do. That's just not, where I come from. But man, it's getting crowded.
Yeah, I mean, so I had a conversation with Ian Heller, and we had the same talk, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's not a lot of times where people are like, you know what, I'm going to solve a different problem for distributors, and there's a couple that are. If you know Loop, there's a product called Loop
I'm not familiar with it.
Freight Audit, and that was actually before I started Continuum. I was close to pulling the trigger on Freight Audit like 4 or 5 years ago because
Interesting. Yeah.
it's a space where you are losing so much money in the freight that you say you're going to get charged versus what you actually are charged. But you're like,
Yeah.
do I want to invest a whole human or team to actually go flip through all these invoices and match up
Right.
what we said
Right.
we were going to get paid? But you're losing money all over the place. Like, and so
Yeah.
I think I won't say who. I was at a Blue Hawk. It might have been a Hardy event. It was probably, I want to say, 8 years ago. And there's
Okay.
a company who's now in this space, and they went around to all these different distributors and booths, and they're like interviewing, right? They're like, hey, if we could solve any problem for you, what would you solve? If we want to start a tech company, what would we
Yeah.
solve? And they're like interviewing people. And ultimately, the solution they came up with, I think, I'm like, that's it. Like, that's what you came up with. And it's a company now, and they do well. It's fine. But I think the problem is distributors have bias for how close they are to their business, where they don't recognize the own problem they have, which is why you see so much Me Too technology. Oh, there's another CRM for distribution companies. There's another analytics play for distribution companies. There's another AP solution, another order
Mhm.
automation solution. But you see things like Loop, which is doing freight audits. Like, oh, that's interesting, right? That's
Yeah,
unique.
for sure. Very different.
There's a play on some PIM, which
Yeah.
has some network effects through the supply chain from manufacturer down to distributor. That's interesting. But the reason I say this is I think if you just ask a distributor on the surface, on its face, what could I solve for you? They're not at first blush going to tell you the most innovative thing or an area where they actually are leaking profitability. They don't quite know without someone coming in and lifting up the covers and be like, hey, see here, there's a rat's nest under there.
So that's really my practice, by the way. That's kind of what I was supposed to do for most of my career. But all
Well,
right,
this
go
was a
ahead.
pitch for you, actually.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. I'm with you, bro. I'm
yeah.
with you.
But no, but that is the
Yeah.
case, right? You're talking second generation, third generation, fourth generation companies who you just don't know some of your practices and just how inefficient or outdated they really are
Yeah.
until someone comes and shows that to you. Which I think is why sometimes you need outside people or
Right.
fresh perspectives to come in and build technology. Which I can't say I'm like from an outside, but like I've always been on that tech side. Like, there's got to be better ways for all of these different things. And I think that's what breeds new categories in tech for distributors and manufacturers.
So looking at the company, you founded and you've been involved with, again, where did returns come up? How did that conversation come up, or did you just observe it?
Well, I'm not that smart. So it's a bit of a canary to the coal mine. So I was at a document automation solution company, right? And automating transactions. And just enough times people are like, hey, well, could you, if you're doing this, could you also take a return? And they're like, well, do your customers submit PDF returns? No, but it's an email. And they're like, so you would want us just to like automate it? And they're like, well, you can't automate the whole thing, but maybe you could just get it into my ERP. And like, what does that solve? They're like, just like a part of the problem, not even the whole thing. And people were like willing to take a janky solution. And so I went to the company at the time and I was like, hey, like I got a group of people who are saying like this is a big enough problem they're willing to pay for it. But really the solution fit we have is not a great, it's not a map, right? Like we're gonna have to build
Yeah.
some stuff. And ultimately the decision they made was like now's not the right time. And I totally respected it, like understood the decision of why, but was like, well, it's not often you have people who are saying I'm willing to go pay for, for someone to solve my problem. And I went and looked at these returns platforms for in the consumer space. Because if you go look at like the e-commerce world for returns processing,
Sure.
oh my God, you want to talk about crowded space. I mean, you could go Google it. I think there's probably 10 different software solutions to solve it. If you're a Shopify store, or you're this or you're that. But when it comes to B2B, like distribution and manufacturing returns and warranties, it's so complex. They don't even come close to solving the problem. So it was a little bit of cheating because I had people saying, hey, this is a problem. Like it's a real problem for us. I validated it. And then I went a lot deeper on it, right? Like trying to get to the real root of why is it so costly to process a return in a distributor? And ultimately what I got to is like the initial transaction is just the beginning.
Yeah.
Like if we have a defective, like a lot of these returns are defectives. Like you think like Milwaukee Tool sells to a distributor, that distributor sells to an MRO, an OEM, some sort of contractor, and they're like, hey, these are broken. Like half the time you're dealing with a return that needs to engage a manufacturer
Right.
of some
Right.
sort. It's what we consider the multi-party return. That's why we can call a warranty the same as a return because we naturally think of a return as a multi-party process. And so it's either you drop shipped it as a distributor or it's defective. You have a catch 22 decision to make. Do I credit my customer now or do I wait and have to go get credit from my manufacturer and tell my customer to wait? Well, either way is a suboptimal outcome. I have a catch
Yeah.
22 to make. Either one is a bad outcome, but I have to make either one of those decisions. And so I just saw this position that these distributors were in. It's like, I either tell my customer no, and now I'm just facing AR invoice disputes, and then customers short paying invoices because they're like, well, I'm not paying that, I have an open return. Or you give your customer your credit, and then you don't have any visibility into like, what do I need to go get credit back from my manufacturer on? And so you have missed vendor credits, which is like real bottom line challenges in the process. And how they solved it is by just throwing bodies at it. And then like, finance team gets involved and they're like, well, where's this return at? I don't know. Do I call the driver? Was it with the driver? Do I call the warehouse? Is it with the CSR? And then customers are calling in. And it's like this problem that they didn't even know they had because it's jamming up their phone lines and it's causing AR invoice disputes. But until you get all these departments in a room talking about it, they're like, oh my God, that's why that happens. It's like, it's
We got a
pretty,
lot of people invested in this one.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's great. No, I'm glad you recognized it, and ran into this thing. So, in a very short stint, I mean, what have you been able to achieve? And, have you thrown some AI against this?
Yeah, so I mean, look, I would say we've been able to achieve the first goal we had, which is actually proving the network model of connecting the manufacturer, distributor, end user. So we could take a warranty claim in the HVAC market that used to take 30 to 40 days to authorize, and we now do that in 30 to 40 seconds for contractors. So like literally, specifically for Ream, and our goal is we do this for every single manufacturer, right? ABB, Milwaukee Tool, every single manufacturer. It's the
Right.
network where the end user can go in and see if their product's under warranty or not, see where they can get a replacement part, how quickly they can get a replacement part, initiate the claim, and it goes through the supply chain and credits are applied back down the supply chain in 30 to 45 seconds. And we have proven that model specifically in one vertical with it. We always say there's independent network value. So independent of the network, there is value. But as the manufacturers come online, the value increases tremendously throughout the time. And so, we have customers typically in one vertical with HVAC, but we have customers in the lab equipment space, door handle hardware security,
Sure.
automotive, electronic components. I mean, industrial. The list just keeps going on. So people are just looking to solve the problem, and they're like, "Hey, if I can get more value when the manufacturers come online, great." As far as where AI comes in with us, we've gone deep in deployments and replicating business logic because this is one of the biggest problems with returns. Like, because you ask them a question, how do you handle this? And you know what their answer is 9 times out of 10? It depends. Right? It depends if it's a big
Of course.
customer. It depends if we're like in a bad spot with that customer, right? Like we always want to treat it like, an edge case scenario. And so we're like, well, it depends is not a great answer for when we're setting up a standard operating procedure or practice in your
Right.
business.
Right.
So we actually use AI to map their current process, and we can actually stand up a company in now 72 hours. We can have them live on our platform in 72 hours in a process. I mean, when you're talking about two-way integrations to an ERP, people are like, what? Not only can you be live, but all of your business logic around restocking fees, how products should go back, where it should go back to based off of your inventory levels and optimizing
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
and doing that in 72 hours, it's the time to value. That to me is any technology project that a distributor employs. One of the biggest problems is like, yeah, the ROI is great. How long is it going to take me and how many people do I have to throw at it to get there? And it's like, well, if I
Right.
could do that in 72 hours in 2 hours of your team's time, people are like, show me. I'm like, okay, we'll show you. And it's been a
Yeah.
game changer for us and our customers. And we have a long roadmap of where we're going with AI. But to me, that's the most exciting because I can tell you, one, with a low upfront investment, it's not like I'm asking you to throw insane service dollars at this now because we built it for scale and you could see the value quickly. Then they're like, okay, what else can you do? And we just expand through the process because we have multiple different products now to take it through the entire life cycle.
You were mentioning this when we ran into each other that I think, HVAC was the logical kind of first choice because of the number of warranty returns. I mean, they have the number one of all verticals, hard goods distribution verticals, number one returns. I guess who's second, third, and fourth? I mean, I think industrials probably gets in there pretty deep. And
So it's a funny question, right? Because you can answer this in a couple different ways. So one, are we just looking at volume? Because if we're just looking at volume, obviously HVAC is number one, but that's not always the biggest determinant of how costly a return is, right? Because a lot of this comes back down to, is it warranty? Do you have to check with the manufacturer? What is the changing frequency of what the manufacturer's policies are? Because
Mhm.
all that, I'll give you an example. One of our customers is like, well, when our this manufacturer, this is an industrial space,
Okay.
when our manufacturer updates their warranty policy, we just end up taking the returns back from our customers, assuming they're under warranty still. But they emailed us letting us know that we updated it. So at the end of the month, we go to return these back, and they're like, no, half of these are actually out of date. And they're like, no, warranty claim is good for up to 2 months from purchase date. Oh, you didn't see that? We updated it. It's actually within 30 days. Now you just ate the cost on half of those claims you thought were good. And so
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
just
Yeah. Yeah.
ate all that cost at the bottom line. So number of transactions is not always equal to most costly. So that's the only caveat I'll add. But number two, I'd say is audio visual, right? So you think about like
Oh, okay. Yeah. There you go.
it's
Yeah. Yeah.
crazy, laptops, screens, computers, the Nest type of world, right?
Sure.
Or
Sure.
ring doorbells. There's a lot of AV
Yeah.
distributors. I would say three after that is probably door handle and hardware. A lot of that, and then these guys get into like locks, like automotive
Yeah.
locks.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Industrial's an interesting one because it's so broad, right? It's like,
It
well,
is. I mean, you can have 20 to 30 different, niche. Somebody really focuses. I have a client that really focuses on everything you'd put on a petroleum tanker. That's it. You know.
what does that include the tires?
No, I don't know if he does. I don't think he sells
See,
tires.
but
No,
this is
no.
but this is that's the thing, right? It's like, okay, well, the automotive market's great for us too, right? So is
Yeah.
that number four? So it's tough to say, right? If
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
go the other way, what's not a fit for us? That's why we say like, for the most part, fasteners, right? I mean, if you screws,
If you are taking them, yeah, if you're taking them outside, yeah, nobody wants to return a fastener. I
no,
mean,
no,
they will if they start popping. If you take a container and they say start popping on you or they break, then you got a
yeah,
problem. You got a big
yeah,
problem, to deal with, and then it's just that's a mess. But
yeah.
yeah, I ran across. I think it was last year, if I remember right. Kind of reacquainted with the Convenience Store Distributors Association.
Mm.
That market
C store, C
and
store. Had some time
C-stores.
in that.
Yeah, yeah. it's a crazy wholesale market.
Those are
I
big
will
distributors running on thin margins, right?
very thin. I mean, razor thin, and I
Yeah.
won't share their margins
I know.
in
I got
public,
to see
but
some. Yeah.
yeah, and I'll tell you, I think that the one that always stuck with me is the returning of tobacco products, with these C stores, when they load up a C store and then what doesn't sell, they get to return
Yeah.
back to them. And these poor folks are putting a tobacco tax stamp on every one of these, individual packages of cigarettes, and then when it comes back, now they got to go chase the state asking for their tax money back because it didn't sell. I mean, that is a returns nightmare, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah. Well, you want to talk about network? I guess we're going to have to start getting into the municipalities, the states getting on, state of North Carolina, you're
Oh,
getting the taxes
tax
back.
stamp. Yeah, tobacco tax stamps. Oh, yeah.
Crazy. Yeah. That's an interesting concept too, because in some markets, these manufacturers will allow their distributors to do that. And well, a lot of them, it depends on the distributor and the relationship, but like the annual buyback. And that's a big area we're helping distributors with is identify their current inventory. Because it's not just customer returns, it's returns back to your vendors. So
Absolutely.
one is like, yeah, we need to take your customer returns, but two is how do we optimize your current inventory levels? And then the next step, once you optimize your inventory level, is, well, what should I then return back to my manufacturer? And making those recommendations around what should be returned back. And those are big returns, right? And so we have some manufacturers
Yeah.
on our platform where we actually are automating the distributor decision making around what should be returned back, flowing
Mhm.
directly into our own system, which is deployed at the manufacturer, to be able to either auto authorize that or kick it into a workflow at the manufacturer. So
Nice.
that's very similar concept. Obviously, just not the third party of needing to go get that tax. 'Cause
Tax stamp back. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No thanks, man. These guys explained that to me and I went,
Hmm.
do y'all ever make money at this? And they're like,
Yeah,
debatable. I don't
yeah.
know. I really don't know.
There's a lot of money
Yeah.
going in, but profit, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. So let me switch gears here for a second. You got involved with tech kind of by happenstance, and some buddies of yours said, "Hey, have you ever looked at tech?"
Yeah.
So I guess the question is, you all are deploying, building these new products, and I saw a ton of energy in that vendor room, when we were in Chicago and looking at all these different booths. I'm like, oh my god, I mean, you guys are all ripping and rolling pretty good. Although it'll be curious to see who's in the room the next year, But you're all building so fast. How do you attract talent into, first of all, distribution in general, but then the tech side of distribution? Because again, it's a niche for sure.
Well, I'll say this. It's challenging for every company. There's been an insane amount of layoffs in tech in the last year and a
Mm.
half, right? And so everyone's like, oh, you should be able to find talent that's so much better. And if you look at it, like we interview people and we're like, oh my God, this person was employed for 3 years. I don't know what they were doing the last 3 years because they don't have any of the skills that are required. Because the great thing is when you're talking about developers, you can actually send them through tests to see like, are you quality? Salesperson's a little more difficult. You could do
Sure.
some stress testing, but you can't literally hand them a test to see their skills. And so I think a lot of the layoffs you've seen is like you're seeing the bottom half of the talent pool just is moved out. And so you're left is the best people are still employed. I will say, like, I think it's still a challenge for every company. I think the big thing is culture, culture, culture. You have to double down on culture, right? Like we have 5 core values that we are very maniacal about, not only just like talking about them, right? It's not just a poster that we all plaster behind my Zoom picture because we don't go to the office. But it's like, how do we reiterate those things? How do we exemplify those things? So we have Zoom chats that were quite literally like we call it recognition returns, right? So we recognize someone throughout the week and then we're calling out what did they do that aligns with our core values and what did that happen. And then I think that in a way has the ability to continue to just has a ripple effect. Like we had someone who's like, hey, I love this place. My brother is looking for a job. Would you be open to interviewing him? Someone else is like, hey, my friend said they're looking for a job and they brought their buddy over who was a developer who they worked there with 2 jobs ago. So I think the people inside your own 4 walls are probably some of your best recruiters. And then obviously we do a little referral fee on top of that. But like,
Yes.
there's a guy named Chad Gano. Do you follow Chad Gano?
I don't
You should
know.
follow him. He's really good. So he's the president of Regal Plastics. He took a company from, and I'll probably get the numbers wrong, but I think it was like 10 million in revenue to 80 million in revenue over a 5-year span, which not a lot of distribution companies are doing, right?
No, that's
And
pretty quick. That's quick.
yeah, like you just don't see like rapid growth out of distribution. It's just hard to do. You have to go take that from someone else, right? Like to get that
Hmm.
kind of growth. It's not like you can just create a category. Really, he will swear to you the way that he's done it is through culture and people. And I believe it. They use something called Culture Index. I'm a huge fan of Culture Index. If you don't know what it
Okay.
is, it's basically people analytics. Like it's like we
Okay.
play Billy Bean of baseball with our people. Like if you're in the wrong position
Okay.
and you're having
Okay.
an out of body experience trying to fit yourself to the job that you need to do,
Yeah.
like you are never going to maximize your potential. And so we have to get the right people in the right positions and the wrong people just off the bus if there's not a spot for them. And Chad Cano, he had a post about this. Like he's like, it changed our business. We put the right people in the right spots. And then we doubled down on culture. And if you look at like the little things about work life balance and what that really means, now that doesn't mean like you're working 30 hours a week because like we have this great fluffy culture. Like we are in a hardcore industry. And so I think culture, and get the right people in the right spots. And I think it works for a distribution company too. Don't downplay how cool this market is. Like as far as a distribution, like I always tell our team, like one of our core company values is being a part of something bigger than yourself. And we believe everyone in our company, like we are a part of something way bigger than Continuum. We are helping the supply chain and distribution and manufacturing companies. And a part of that, we want to help these businesses be better. Like not just like us help them with through our technology, but how can we in general help them be better? And I think cultural pieces like that are so key. And I think it's also easy when you're in a legacy industry to skip over that one. Like in your culture is
Hmm.
your legacy. Like we've been around for 100 years, that's our culture.
But what do you stand for?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that means something.
Yeah.
I know it does.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think that people that you are trying to attract are looking for that. They are looking for what do you stand for? What do you believe in? Rather than, what are your numbers? What are you going to pay me? How much time am I going to be? It's what do you stand for? And I think that is far more attractive to younger people looking for their life's work, or at least their starting point. I think it's just more attractive. And, people argue with me all day long about these kinds of things, but I don't think they spend enough time with younger generations to really understand that.
I went through a period of time where I really was like generational bias, like which is not fair, right? I was like these young people, like this is what I would say. These young people, right?
Yes.
They don't get it. These young people, they don't know how to work. They don't do this, right?
Right.
And I think for me, I had to change my mindset on it a bit. Like it's not them. Like if I'm consistently saying these people, like it's well, maybe it's not them, right?
Maybe I
Maybe
should look in the mirror here. Yeah. Yeah.
and so I think you have to look at, well, what do we do to attract and motivate and keep these young people excited about what we're doing? Because I can either say, damn these young people, or I can say, you know what, we want these people because if we don't, we're not going to make it. We're not going to be around and we need them. And so we need
Mhm.
to foster an environment for them. And so, yeah, I think there was learning there for me personally on that too.
Mhm. Yeah, it's funny. I'm actually doing a webinar tomorrow on this, on generational differences and bias, and talk a little bit about that. So good. I've got a little more fodder for tomorrow. I've got a couple more stories to throw by. You real quickly, and kind of running a little tight on time, but you all started a podcast. You're starting a podcast. You're cooking with this. Maybe even at episode 2 or 3. I don't know, but
Yeah. Yeah.
tell me about your podcast. What's the name of it? So people can go follow it.
Yes. So it's return to basics for distributors and
Okay.
manufacturers, right? Play
Okay.
on words, but it really,
Of
the
course.
whole concept is how do we go back to the fundamentals, the blocking and tackling of distribution? We don't need to. So we always say there's like bottom up approaches to things, which is literally just saying how to take the baby with the bathwater out, right? Throw the baby with the
Yeah.
bathwater, and let's start over in this department. But then there's top down, which is look at existing processes and how do we optimize and make those as efficient as possible. And so we want to return to some pretty fundamental basics around how we can do both of those things at the same time, which is, innovation plus optimization at the same time. And,
Mhm.
doing that in staying true to your roots in distribution manufacturing. And it all goes, everything is all centered around the supply chain. So returning to basics for distributors and manufacturers. We're excited. Our content is ahead of our release. So we have episode 2 coming out here soon, and then we'll have 3 coming out. So we're just going to keep producing.
Yeah, it's a fun journey, man. It's fun. And, you don't even worry about it. If people like it, they don't, I just like doing it, man. And I enjoy talking to people, and I enjoy, learning about their journey and stuff. That's the whole reason I think I shared with you that's, I enjoy, people fascinate me, and what is their journey, and, why did they get in the career that they did, and, what makes them tick. So now good luck with that. That's going to be a lot of fun for you all. And it can be a grind sometimes, but, just kind of keep pushing through and enjoy it.
Well, the good thing is it's not our day job, right? It's something that we're a part of something bigger than ourselves, right? This is it's a gift for the industry. If some people like it and they find value in it, it's great. If they don't, you don't have to watch it. But like you said, I've met so many great people, like meeting you and then reconnecting with you and connecting the dots.
Right.
Oh my God, my second year of distribution, we crossed paths and we didn't even know it, and so the more of that we have, in more connections we can make inside of the industry. We love it, man. We love it. We love this vertical. We love this industry, and we want to help it progress.
So how can people find you at Continuum?
Yeah, so I'm big on LinkedIn. Go on LinkedIn. It's Alex Witcpalek. You're probably not going to spell the last name right just by trying to get it from that.
I'm going to put it on the show notes, and I'm going to get it. Yeah, at least there'll be a link, so they can't find.
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn. Big on LinkedIn. Would love to connect. And then also you check us out on our website. It's Go Continuum, GoContinuum.ai. GoContinuum.ai. We would love to connect with you.
Cool. I will definitely make sure it all goes in the show notes. I'd love to have people kind of push your way, and looking forward to hearing, the podcast, man. Just checking it out and see what kind of colorful characters you have rolling around on there. So,
well, we'll certainly keep you in the loop, and I'm sure you'll be checking it out. But thanks for having me, Jason. This was awesome.
Yeah, lots of fun, man. Always great to connect. Look forward to the next time we do it.
All right, you're due for a cold plunge tomorrow.
I am due for a cold plunge, and it's getting colder. All right, my man. We'll talk soon. Take care. Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, consider sharing with your friends and colleagues. And don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast application. Links to sponsors, products, and services mentioned during this episode can be found in the show description area or at www.distributiontalk.com. Distribution Talk is edited and mixed by the brilliant team at the Creative Imposter Studios. This episode was brought to you by my company, The Distribution Team. We are a consulting services firm dedicated to helping wholesale distribution clients remove barriers to profitability, generate wealth, and achieve personal goals. To learn more about how we can help your company succeed, check us out at www.thedistributionteam.com.